Hi, everybody. Mr. Johnson here, and we're going to talk today about making a paper forms sculpture. Now, there are a lot of cool ways that you can make sculpture using only paper. This is just one of them, but I want to show you a bunch of examples and some different ideas that can get you making some 3D sculptural creations. So jump on in and let's see what we can make. So, aren't these incredible? These are some three-dimensional forms made using paper, and now these also use thread, which is totally cool. Um, Bounced a little bit. So, what I want to talk to you about are what forms are, what abstract art is, and some different ways that you can create these using just paper or objects that you find around your home. One of the things that we'll be looking for are three-dimensional sculptures that are purely abstract, that are just made of cool shapes and designs. And let's look at some more really cool examples. So these are awesome. Now, these are a lot simpler looking. They are difficult to make. So it's deceptively simple because they look, just like paper boxes. If you have an X-Acto knife or razor blade, as long as you use it very carefully, that is a great way to cut out some of the sections in the paper to give it this opened look, which I think is really, really cool. We'll come back to these in a minute. So abstract art is art that uses only shape, form, and color with no recognizable subject matter. It does not represent anything from real life. So here are two very simple examples of abstract art in painting and design. They use only shapes and forms and colors, nothing from real life. So you won't be able to recognize any particular subject matter in an abstract artwork. Now, forms are three-dimensional. They have length, width, and height and can be viewed from many angles. Forms have volume and take up space. So a square is not a form, just because a square is flat. But a cube is a form because it is three-dimensional. You can actually rotate it and look at it from multiple different angles. So our sculptures should be both abstract, meaning just designs, nothing representational, and using forms. So here are some awesome examples of some abstract sculptures. So this is made out of paper with these cubes that stack one on top of another with this shape cut out of it. It's really cool. All they've done is cut pieces out of paper with little tabs that you can fold and glue together, and just use a glue stick or a piece of tape to attach those pieces of paper together. The one on the right is made up of shapes out of corrugated cardboard, left over from a box that they've cut up and painted different colors and glued together. So that's really cool too. If you want to keep yours simple, just using the color of the paper, that's great. You'll notice a lot of these sculptures are just white, using just plain white paper. But if you want to paint them or add color to them, that's awesome. Go ahead. Here are some ones by professional artists that are amazing to look at. Uh, I hope you don't ask me for help on how to make these because honestly, I have no idea. I just think they're absolutely beautiful. If you look at something like this one, all the way on the right, in the right column, third row down, the fourth one over, it looks like these curved right sections. If you notice, this is one piece of paper that's been folded almost in an accordion, a fan, back and forth, and then they've curved it and overlapped these corners together. And that has pulled that paper in and made it a rounded shape. Now you can find tutorials online about how to fold or cut paper into many different shapes. So if there's something specific that you want to make, you can find that. If you want to just play around and see what you come up with, that's really cool too. You'll notice some of these are very solid looking. Some of them are very thin and open with a lot of cut out areas. Both styles perfectly acceptable and very cool. So here are some different techniques you can use when sculpting with paper. Just cutting out shapes is great. If you want a more organic looking edge, you can tear the paper. Folding it will give you nice crisp edges. So for angles, any shape that has angled sides like rectangles and triangles. Get a nice crisp fold, that's great. You can pinch the paper just to create areas of interest. You can roll it if you want to make a tube or a cylinder. Pleating it is folding it back and forth, overlapping. It's that zigzag pattern. Scoring and folding means that scoring is to cut very, very lightly through part of the paper and fold it. So that's a cool technique. The fringe you may have done before, just cutting slits in the paper. You can weave pieces together. That's a great idea if you want to do that, whether it's one color or two different colors. You can curl or quill the paper. So if you roll it up very tightly and then let it go, it'll keep a rounded shape, but it'll spiral together. Or cutting out a flat spiral is a cool way to work. Now, you don't have to just use regular plain white paper for this, although you can, that's awesome. But here are a bunch of other things that you can use. So if you want to pause this and look at some of the things on the list, be my guest. But wrapping paper might be really cool. If you have colored paper, painted paper, newspaper would be great. Pages from magazines, junk mail or old envelopes, brown paper bags, anything like that could be used to make this cool paper sculpture. So think about any options that you might have available to you. So let's watch this DIY video on how to make a paper cube. This is the basic form that a lot of these sculptures are based on. Yours does not have to do this. So if you're not interested in making cubes, you can kind of skip ahead. But this is the basic form that most of these sculptures start with and are based off of. Paper folds. Let's look at how to do it. Some water. Now, this uses different colored paper pieces for each side. You don't have to do that. Right, so they're just going to go right through it. You can obviously pause it to follow along with what they're doing. So they are doing this just to mark where the centers of both sides are. If you notice, they're not creasing it all the way across. They are just putting little folds on the two corners so that they know where the centers are. Now they're folding it again, which is going to be a quarter of the way across. So now they're measuring, right? They're putting a fold all the way across at a quarter and then folding right up to that with the other side of the paper. Yeah. Now you're going to do the same thing this way with it already folded. Fold up to the centers, 1/4 of the way down. Guess what you do next? Fold the other side. Meet at the middle, crease it. Make sure that if you're doing this right, that you really crease those edges. Press hard on them. You want to make sure that those folded edges are nice and crisp. So you're going to do this. You're going to make 6 of them. It can be any size you want. Now this is one side of the cube. Now you're going to put them together. So watch how they do it. First, the one is just sitting right inside the other. And they start putting the edges in so that the little folded parts sit inside. And they keep tucking those edges in so that they're hiding the folded parts and you only see the flat side. So they're going to work their way across. And if those are nice tight folds, they will help hold the other pieces together. One more. Pardon me. Ta-da! Simple paper cube. So this uses 6 individual pieces of paper, and you can decide how large you want your cube to be. Here are lots of other links right on their site for folding paper. Clicked a link, sorry about that. So if you want to make paper cubes, you can go back to that, rewatch that video, and pause it on each step. It's super easy. And if you want to make those and use that as the base of your design, you can do that. I've had people make really cool sculptures only using cubes. Just make a whole bunch of them or different sizes, and then either stack them together or arrange them together. It's a great way to do it. You can, again, use an X-Acto knife or razor blade as long as you are very careful. You keep your fingers away from the blade. You can cut windows into those boxes if you want spaces that are missing. That's a really cool look as well. So here are some different basic forms that you can use with paper sculpture. So a cylinder, that's just rolling the paper together. Just put a little bit of glue or tape on the edge. A square prism is making a cylinder and then flattening it, right? You line up the creases, which is what they show here. So you roll your paper, you press it flat, line up those two creases, and then fold it in half again, and then you open it up and you have a rectangular box. If you want to close this box in, you can make the same rectangular prism and cut down on each of the corners the same distance, and then fold those in, and that gives you a closed end of a box. To make a triangular prism, you're going to crease it just in 3 sides instead of in 4, like the rectangular prism. So that's a great option for you as well. So if you want to use any of these shapes, be my guest. So a big part of this project is getting a good quality photograph of your sculpture. Because it's 3D, we want to be able to see it really well. So here are some tips on how to do that. So after you have made your piece, you're going to want to post a finished photo along with the in-progress photos that you'll do each day. But the finished photo should be really nice and clear. So make sure that you have even lighting with no distracting shadows, right? So if you have something that's blocking, right, your face or making a big shadow over it, we don't want that. Same thing with your sculpture. Make sure that you don't have shadows across it. Have an uncluttered and simple background. This could be just putting it on a table and taking a photograph of it, or on the floor, taking a photograph of it. If you would like, you could lay out a sheet, a blank piece of paper to use as your background and put your sculpture on top of that if your backgrounds are busy or distracting. You want them simple and uncluttered. It's a harder word to say than I expected it to be. You want to make sure you shoot these photos from a direct angle so everything is clearly visible, right? Don't take your picture from a really funky angle. You don't want to be looking at it like this. You want to be looking at it straight on. That's going to give you the best view. Make sure you hold your phone or your camera steady. If you have a tripod, you can do that. If not, hold it steady, and I recommend, it's down here, taking multiple photos in case one of them is blurry. Choose the best one. Make sure your image is in focus. If you're using a smartphone, you can often tap the screen on the area that you would like to be in focus, and it will make sure that the lens focuses on that part of the screen. Make sure that that is your artwork. And then when you are done, crop out any unnecessary information in the photo. So if you have the photograph of the artwork and there's stuff on the tables on the sides, if that's in the photo, when you finish, just crop it out so that we're only looking at the artwork. So what are the instructions? I'm so glad you asked. You are going to create an abstract sculpture using paper. Here are 2 fantastic examples. Fold, cut, twist, or shape your paper into individual forms and then attach them together. Use any kind of paper that you want. Again, you can go back to that list if you want some ideas, or just plain white copy paper is great. Keep your forms neat. Now, what that means is that we shouldn't see gross folds. We shouldn't have glue oozing out the edge. They shouldn't be dirty or whatever. Right? Just make sure that those forms are what you want them to look like. The best quality that they can be. Take a good quality photograph with a clean, empty background. Just went over that. Use at least 5 paper forms for your sculpture, but more is definitely better. Right, look at how many different forms and shapes make up sculptures like these. They're so cool. Be creative. Attach and arrange your forms in interesting ways. My recommendation for you, if you are choosing this project, is to make the paper forms first, and then try arranging them in different ways before you attach anything. Just hold them up and move them. Should I put it on this side? What if I stack them like this? That way, you can experiment with what your piece will look like before committing to something by gluing it or taping it together. I'd recommend that you use glue, glue bottle or a glue stick so that you don't see tape on the outside edge. That can be distracting. If you have to tape it together, that's fine. If you do want to use other materials like thread or string to attach yours, if you have a cool idea, go for it. That's awesome. I do want to point out this top example here because these are all just folded paper triangles. I guess technically they're pyramids because they are 3D forms. So all they did was fold a whole bunch of those paper triangles, just made a pile of them, and then glued them together in really interesting ways. The bottom sculpture has all different forms, a lot of triangles, but rectangles also, some cones, some just little folded pieces. So the sky is the limit. Don't forget that I need to see an in-progress photo each day that you work on this so I can give you feedback. So that show me some of the forms you've made. If you have ideas about how to attach them together, upload that photo to your portfolio, and then I'll give you some information, some tips or suggestions before you create the final version. If you want to look at how to fold specific paper forms, you can search on YouTube for tutorials, or you can look on Google Images or Pinterest. There are a lot of great resources for you out there. I hope you'll have a lot of fun. Let's get folding!